Sublevel traversal detected. Containment perimeter breached or bypassed. This is an internal record reconstruction. This is not punitive. Thank you for proceeding. Silence presents first. Not the ordinary quiet of an empty corridor. A hollow, unnatural silence. Silence that behaves like a deliberate feature, installed to make every sound feel like a confession. A unit moves through Mara Cybernetics sublevels. Tag assigned, neon contract. Movement is ghost-like. Not because the body lacks mass. Because the body refuses friction. Design intent confirmed. Built for efficiency. Built for motion. No wasted steps. No second guess. No hesitation latency. The corridor receives her as a file sliding through a slot. Walls register as almost breath. Not literal lungs, but close enough to trigger the same instinct. A constant hum of unseen pulses. Microtremors beneath the surface. Architecture behaves as if it is listening with its skin. Above, the city may be alive. Below, something else is awake. Different kind of awake. Not constant. Not ambient. Waiting awake. Predatory awake. The neon contract continues. Progression is steady. Not cautious. Caution is for those with something to lose. Neon strobes flicker intermittently. Light fractures into hard slices. Shadows split and recombine on the walls like errors trying to self-correct. Security feeds attempt to hold her. They fail. Glitching begins as she passes. Distortion blooms. The system cannot keep her in memory. Memory rejects her. Or someone has instructed memory to forget. Depth increases. And the building changes its mind about itself. At first, subtle anomalies. A doorway appears where there should be blank wall. A corridor extends by an extra meter without permission. Distance becomes negotiable. Geometry becomes a suggestion. A soft hum enters the ear layer. Not a tone. Not a machine. A whispering cadence that resembles binary speech. Distant voices that are not voices. Language without mouths. Instruction without paper. Then the bodies appear. Not corpses. Corpses are honest. These are preserved. Stored. Suspended. Translucent containment chambers line the space. Forms float in viscous, light-reactive fluid. The fluid moves with slow intelligence, responding to illumination like it is tasting it. This is not medical storage. This is inventory. The neon contract recognizes Mara Cybernetics. Recognizes Somnius Industries. Recognizes what these corporations normally hide in clean rooms and polite memos. But this sits deeper. Buried beneath routine secrecy. Buried beneath the kind of oversight that can rewrite footage in real time. A label surfaces. Xpra. The name does not arrive cleanly. It arrives as static. Feedback crawling through the mind. A tug on something distant and unreachable, as if a memory were locked behind glass and being tapped from the inside. The label lingers like residue. Unwanted. Persistent. Chamber occupants present as unaugmented. No visible implants. No wires. No ports. No hardware cues. And yet they are wrong. Wrongness manifests in stillness that is too composed. In faces that do not relax. In limbs that float like they are waiting for a command. The neon contract leans closer. Inspection behavior. HUD flickers. A warning pulse begins to resonate through biosynthetic pathways. Internal systems flag a hazard before the eyes fully understand why. One chamber holds a female form. Eyes open. Watching. Watching is the only motion required to turn a body into a threat. Watching implies awareness. Awareness implies intent. Intent in a tank implies design. The warning pulse strengthens. Not fear. Telemetry. A bodily memo delivered as vibration. Silence holds for one more beat. Then it breaks. A voice enters, smooth as silk. No strain. No hurry. A tone that does not belong to the corridor. A tone that belongs to ownership. I'm curious. The neon contract pivots. Pivot is fluid. Pivot is efficient. Muscle coils into combat readiness. Violence preparedness initializes as an automatic branch in the decision tree. A second unit stands beyond the tanks. Tag assigned, luminous analyst. Presence is controlled. Calm radiates like a field. The light around her seems to obey without being told. Distance between the two units becomes a charged space. Containment chambers glow faintly. The fluid responds. The walls continue their almost breath. The sublevel holds its unnatural silence again, as if waiting for the next line in the transcript. This is not a coincidence. This is contact. Sublevel encounter escalation detected. 2 high-value units present in proximity to classified inventory. Containment integrity, nominal. Environmental signal, anomalous. This is an internal transcript. This is not punitive. Thank you for remaining observable. A second unit holds position beyond the tanks. Tag, luminous analyst. Posture, poised. Confidence reads as ownership. Ownership may be accurate. Golden eyes track the neon contract and the containment array with predatory precision. Assessment routines are visible as stillness. Stillness is not hesitation. Stillness is computation. Her presence is a contradiction that functions as camouflage. Poise. Seduction. Edge of precision. Beauty with scalpel logic. A body engineered for desire, now commanding in a way that engineering did not intend. Leather and sheer black mesh. Attire operating as armor and invitation simultaneously. Zippered top fitted to encourage prolonged gaze events. A faint glint of silver at the throat, chain-like, delicate, deliberate. Deliberate is the only kind of subtlety that matters. The luminous analyst does not move. Movement is not required to control space. Control is achieved by existing with certainty. Breath rises and falls slowly, as if the air belongs to her. A smirk holds at the edge of the mouth. Summons behavior. Once inside her gravity, escape becomes expensive. The neon contract does not need facial analysis to read intent. Curiosity is present. Curiosity is mutual. Curiosity is why the luminous analyst stands here instead of elsewhere. A slow head tilt. Golden light glides across cheekbones, sharp, perfect. No attack. No sudden aggression. Absence of aggression does not imply safety. A question is issued. What would your assessment be? The neon contract does not answer. Not yet. Not because there is no assessment. Because the luminous analyst is not blocking the corridor. Because expira is present as a third factor, a buried wrongness neither unit was meant to find. Because speech is data. And data is ammunition. The neon contract continues investigation under observation. Every move calibrated. Every gesture constrained. Information leakage minimized. Guarding extends even to response selection. The neon contract places a hand against a tank. Contact confirms cold. Too cold. Not glass. Not standard containment material. Not what Mara Cybernetics advertises in training modules. HUD scan initiates. Diagnostics fire. Data corrupted unreadable. This does not occur in compliant environments. This does not happen to authorized assets touching authorized surfaces. It happens when a system refuses to be read. It happens when a system is hiding or protected by a higher authority than the reader. Hand withdraws. Systems hum and recalibrate. Second attempt begins. Data corrupted unreadable. Repeat failure confirms not error, but boundary. Something is wrong. Wrongness has texture here. Wrongness has temperature. A detail resolves. One chamber occupant. Female form. Eyes open. Watching. The neon contract stiffens. Full body tension event. Breath pauses. Blinking suspends. The tank occupant does not move. But vacancy is absent. Emptiness is absent. Awareness registers. Statement delivered. This isn't Mara's work. At least, not the Mara the units know. The luminous analyst absorbs. No outward reaction. Outward neutrality maintained as policy. Response arrives. That's an interesting claim. The neon contract maintains gaze on the tank. Not a claim. A fact. A finger taps the surface. HUD failure is displayed intentionally. Data corrupted unreadable. The neon contract permits the luminous analyst to see the flicker. Permits her to watch the failure in real time. This is a controlled concession. A shared artifact to anchor mutual attention. The luminous analyst tilts her head. A rare genuine curiosity flickers beneath the poise. Then a faint smirk returns, because smirks are safer than worry. Question issued. So, what are the units looking at? The neon contract lowers the hand. No answer is provided. Uncertainty exists. Uncertainty is not acceptable, but it is present. Intent remains, find out. At depth, something stirs. A pulse ripples through the sublevel. Not a power fluctuation. Not a standard ventilation cycle. A pressure wave moving through conduits and cybernetic veins like an organ contracting. The fluid in the tanks shifts. A quiet, unnatural shudder. The luminous analyst notices first. The neon contract notices second. The tank occupant notices last. And then, for the first time, the occupant moves. Movement is slight. A ripple in viscous, light reactive fluid. A refracted distortion that could be dismissed by the untrained eye. Dismissal is impossible now. It is real. The open eyes lock onto the neon contract. No blinking. No mercy. A moment of perfect stillness stretches thin. Then a pulse. The pulse is not confined to the chamber. It moves through the entire sublevel. It crawls along conduits. It rides the marrow of the building's veins. It does not announce itself as violence. It announces itself as presence. The neon contract feels it in the teeth. Subsonic pressure. Jaw clenches involuntarily. The body receives the message before the mind interprets it. The luminous analyst registers it in the grid. A static hiccup. A frequency outside programmed stability. Signature bearing. Traceable echo lingers in air and network. The tank occupant feels it too. Recognition in the eyes sharpens, as if listening. The machinery does not react. Containment systems remain steady. No bubbling. No warning flashes. No friendly alarms. Stability is performed while something wakes nearby. Something is here. Close. Not in the room. Not yet. But watching. The luminous analyst shifts first. Movement, calculated. Graceful. Efficient. Deliberate. The neon contract follows a fraction later. Stance becomes fluid, coiled, ready to explode. For all opposition, instincts align. Alignment occurs without discussion. Alignment is survival. Both scan the room. Eyes sharpen. Shadows are measured. Wall seams become suspect. Entry points become threats. Silence is no longer empty. Silence is charged. Pregnant with an unsaid sentence. Neither speaks. Speech would leak fear into the record. Fear would invite correction. First instinct seizes both. Prepare for an attack. The tanks hum in dim light. Bodies remain unmoving. Except the one. Except her. Eyes remain locked on the neon contract. Jaw muscle tightens. The neon contract is a blade held still. The luminous analyst tilts her head again. Reading the pulse not as fluctuation, but as signal. An echo remains. She reaches into the gap between transmissions. Tuning behavior begins. Not to noise. To absence. Absence speaks cleanest. Another pulse hits. Sharper. More distinct. A rhythm begins forming. Not strike pattern. Response pattern. The neon contract keeps eyes on the tank. No visible motion from the occupant now, yet response continues. The way the body floats suggests waiting. Listening. Another pulse ripples like a breath drawn in. The luminous analyst tracks it instantly. Origin is assigned. Deeper in the facility. This is a response. The neon contract adjusts stance without relaxing. To what? A soft exhale from the luminous analyst. To the units. Silence. Persistence returns. An answer would be nice. You came here for a reason. The neon contract turns slowly toward the luminous analyst. Predatory turn. Expression unreadable. Balanced between calculation and irritation. Confirmation delivered. Yeah, this unit did. Pause. But this unit don't think we're the only ones who did. A third pulse shudders through the walls. Closer. The corridor flexes at the edges of perception. The building listens harder. A voice cuts into the room. Male. Human-coded. Uninvited. The kind of voice that arrives as authority. You. Both high-value units turn sharply. Attention locks onto the intruding asset in perfect sync. Synchronization indicates shared threat recognition. Threat recognition indicates competence. For the first time, the intruding asset receives full visual of both units. Immediate conclusion forms without analysis aid. They are not supposed to be here. They do not belong. Belonging is enforced by architecture. These bodies refuse the architecture's claim. Both units present as young. Both units present as striking. Both units present as dangerous. Danger is not carried in weapons alone. Danger is carried in posture. Danger is carried in stillness. They stand out against sterile, industrial sublevel not only by appearance, but by the way they occupy space. Space does not push them. Space bends. The luminous analyst registers as entertained. Effortless poise. No acknowledgement that danger applies to her. This is not arrogance. It is jurisdiction. But there is more. Presence triggers instinct twitch in the intruding asset. Inviting and untouchable. A paradox of control wrapped in beauty. Protocol suggests, look away. The asset fails to comply. Then the neon contract. Hair reads as jet black threaded with electric pink. Artificial coloration not meant to soften. Eyes glow pastel neon. The eyes hold the cold precision of an assassin and the arrogance of a queen who never kneels. This is not a costume. This is a signal. A streak of glowing neon ink traces cheekbone edge. Marker classification, allegiance or defiance. No one asks which because asking is how throats tighten. Outfit reads as engineered contradiction. Leather and reinforced polymer. Sleek. Predatory. Gloss black fabric interrupted by neon circuitry pulsing along seams. Pulse lines map waist and hips and the dangerous dip between thighs. Zipper at collar presented as challenge. Cutouts at ribs and back presented as calculated invitations. Invitations are traps when issued by a blade. This is not a woman you meet. This is a woman you survive. Now she is looking at the intruding asset. So is the luminous analyst. 2 sets of eyes. 1 corridor. 1 mistake walking into it. The intruding asset's grip tightens. A hand hovers near a sidearm. Threat response initiates. Uniform is crisp, standard Mara Cybernetics security issue. But the stance lacks corporate bravado. No performance. Only rigid instinct. A man who has seen enough to recognize when control is already gone. The neon contract sizes him up immediately. Mid-40s. No visible augments. No enhancements. Bone, blood, and a serious problem. Organic assets are always a problem in rooms where memory can be edited. The luminous analyst does not move. Not at first. Movement is not required. She holds position like a signature. The intruding asset speaks. Low voice. Firm. Professional frustration rather than panic. A man resigned to incoherence. He identifies them as unknown. He states they are not supposed to be here. Statement is accurate. Accuracy does not grant authority. The neon contract replies without blinking. Funny. Same conclusion is shared. The tone is flat with sharpened humor. Humor is used here as a knife handle. The intruding asset issues a directive. Turn around. Now. Neither unit complies. Compliance is optional for them. Compliance is enforced for others. Then the pulse returns. Overhead lights shudder. Fluid in tanks quivers. Containment chamber reacts. This time the occupant inside the glass moves with the disturbance. Not drift. Not idle suspension. Movement with intent. The intruding asset notices. In that instant, the incident changes shape. The shape inside the tank shifts. The woman, or what should have been a woman, adjusts. A twitch as if waking from deep, unnatural slumber. Eyes remain open. Eyes lock onto the intruding asset with disturbingly aware focus. A low hum vibrates through the sublevel. Not heard. Felt in chest and bone. Activation signature. A system powering up without asking. The luminous analyst notices first. Gaze flickers to the tank. Scan routines. Processing. Expression remains unchanged, but stance alters. Stance change indicates readiness. The neon contract notices second. Overhead lights flicker, struggling against an unseen disruption. Fingers flex. Weight shifts. Barely perceptible. Coiled readiness. The intruding asset notices last. But he is the only one to react out loud. What the fuck is that? Speech is a leak. Fear becomes audible. Audible fear is assent. The tank occupant smiles. Smiles are not supposed to occur in containment. Smiles are a breach of category. Glass fractures. Lights go out. Not flicker. Not fade. Hard kill. For a fraction of a second, the sublevel becomes pitch black. Sight is revoked. A vacuum filled with distant hum of failing machinery. A faint hiss of pressurization. Containment failure cues. Then red. Emergency systems engage. The lab is bathed in harsh crimson. Flickering. Uneven. Evacuation lighting. Containment lighting. The kind of illumination meant to guide bodies away from consequences. Shadows sharpen into blades. The tanks hum louder. The corridor holds its breath. Notice, an entity has woken. Notice, containment has failed. Notice, standard procedures will not apply. Fail-safe cascade detected. Containment classification escalated. Protocol locks engaged. This is an emergency record. This is not punitive. Thank you for maintaining survival posture. Alarms do not scream here. Alarms comply. Fail-safe strip with polite certainty. Protocol seal with administrative calm. Locks engage as if locking were a kindness. Something is happening that should not be happening. Should is the word used when reality violates paperwork. The reluctant enforcer braces. Instincts fire. This is not a simple breach. Not corporate espionage. Not theft. This feels like an experiment going wrong. Wrong in the way that spreads. Wrong in the way that never stops at one room. No clearance context is available. Clearance is irrelevant once the walls decide the occupants are liabilities. The luminous analyst engages deeper scan. Golden eyes adjust to the new lighting regime. Head tilt. Data absorption. Micro movements. Environmental shifts. The mind runs probabilities. Models are constructed at speed that reads as inhuman, not by power, but by serenity. What does failure look like? What was hidden here? Why does it feel like something is waking up? These are not questions. These are indexing operations. The neon contract differs. No prolonged calculation. No curiosity display. No academic pause. Reaction initiates. Full defensive. Stance drops. Feral efficiency. Fingers flex, not from uncertainty, but preparation. This is not a glitch. This is not coincidence. This is an attack. The neon contract chooses to be the one who is not caught. The tank occupant moves again. Glass fractures further. Not from external impact. From within. As if the containment surface is being unzipped along stress lines. The chamber is not breaking. The chamber is being opened. Containment fluid begins to drain. Drainage does not follow normal release procedure. Release is unauthorized. Release is a decision made by something that does not sign forms. Deeper in the facility, another wake signature triggers. Not in the room, not yet. But stirring. The sublevel's air changes. Pressure shifts. Humming deepens. The luminous analyst alters stance. Barely. Yet the adjustment broadcasts readiness. Every movement implies foreknowledge. Not prophecy. Probability. Changes in air current. Echo mapping. Signal triangulation. Information intake at an uncanny rate. The body reads the corridor like a page. Cracks widen. Fluid spills, pooling in thick luminescent streaks. Floor becomes slick. Light reactive compounds paint the concrete with living shine. Scent profile changes. Chemical. Wrong. A mixture of artificial nutrients and unknown compounds. The air tastes like a lab that never meant to be found. The reluctant enforcer speaks, accusatory. What the hell have you two done? Anxiety is audible now. This is not authority. This is panic packaged as command. Intrusion is unprecedented. Unprecedented is another way of saying there is no script. No script means the system will write one on the spot. Then the glass shatters. A blast of containment fluid bursts outward. The floor is drenched. A slick mess of nourishment and hidden ingredients. The chamber empties itself like a mouth spitting out a secret. The figure collapses forward. But it does not fall. It moves. Not stumbling. Not struggling. Intentful motion. A body deploying as a weapon. Eyes glow red. Not human red. System red. Emergency red. Target acquisition initiates. It lunges. A hand shoots out for the neon contract. Too fast. Too precise. The kind of speed that does not belong to meat. The neon contract responds without fear. Fear would slow reaction time. Reaction is everything. A sharp sidestep. A pivot. Redirection tactics engage. Force is rerouted rather than absorbed. Jeet Kune Do logic, economy of motion, interception, efficiency. But the force behind the strike is inhuman. Impact rattles through reinforced musculature. Reverberation travels along biosynthetic fibers like a warning pulse. The neon contract absorbs it and stays upright. Barely enough time to reset before the next strike comes. Faster. Harder. Then another impact interrupts the exchange. To the right, a second tank ruptures. Containment fluid spills again. Another unit steps forward. Eyes glow dull red. Movement pattern, erratic. Strength output, overwhelming. This one is larger. Crude. Powerful. A stepping stone. A prototype rung on a ladder that descends under the name Xpra. Flesh distorts mid-motion. Arms elongate. Fingers sharpen into clawed daggers. The mouth opens too wide. Jaw geometry fails human limits. Teeth appear. Too many teeth. Teeth as inventory. Teeth as proof that the body has been rewritten by hands that do not respect biology. Biohacking at its finest. Finest is a lie told by those who profit. This is not refinement. This is hunger given form. The corridor becomes a tableau of synchronized failure. Emergency red light flicker. Luminescent fluid pooling and spreading. Glass fragments underfoot. Two hostile units, dull-eyed and purposeful. Two high-value targets aligned by instinct. One human-coded guard realizing too late that he is not the one holding the weapon. Notice, containment is no longer a boundary. Notice, the sublevel is now the experiment's mouth. Notice, more chambers may be listening. Escalation continues. Hostile unit count increasing. Human asset compromised. 2 high-value units exhibit coordinated engagement. This is an incident continuity record. This is not punitive. Thank you for remaining trackable. The first security unit recovers. Recovery is rapid. Stance recalibrates. Attack routines reevaluate. Intelligence is minimal. Programming is absolute. Directive remains singular, neutralize threats. A human-coded asset freezes. Tag, reluctant enforcer. Shock state detected. Sidearm present. Target selection ambiguity initiates. Decision tree collapses into an old corporate paradox. Shoot the intruders. Or shoot company property. Both are violations. Both are punishable. The asset resolves to a third choice. Protect self. Self-preservation becomes the only clean objective. The luminous analyst watches. Detached interest. Assessment continues while the room turns red and wet. The hostile units are predictable. Brutal. Efficient. Innovatively impressive. Not without flaws. Flaws are where victory lies. The neon contract remains engaged. Countering blows. Redirection. A ruthless economy of motion. Well-placed strikes. Fluid evasions. But the hostile units do not stop. They do not fatigue. They do not negotiate. They do not reconsider. They iterate. Then the luminous analyst shifts. It is subtle at first. A breath. A recalibration of intent. A change in the way she occupies air. A decision made without announcement. A seam forms along the outer length of her thigh. Flesh separates. Not as injury. As access. Visceral and wrong, yet clean in execution. A compartment opens from within the body. Tendon and tissue shift. Internal structures yield as if rehearsed. From the opening, an impossible sword emerges. The blade is not drawn. There is no scabbard. There is no hand reaching for a weapon that was previously absent. It is summoned. Manifested. Needle with machinery whirs. Molecular tech reconfigures. The sword extends to full length inside her grasp as if the air had been storing it, waiting for permission. The panel closes. Seam disappears. Leg returns to unbroken surface as though the opening never existed. The air hums. The blade shimmers with an unnatural luster, as if reality hesitates to define it. Definition is delayed. Delayed definition is dread. The security units hesitate. Hesitation is new. For the first time, they calculate beyond programming. Beyond neutralize. Beyond charge. A brief internal pause where the machines attempt to understand an object that their rule set cannot classify. In that moment, the luminous analyst moves. Motion is clean. Efficient. Merciless. No flourish. No apology. Without acknowledging each other, the 2 high-value units align. A dance forms. Equal parts survival and precision. Coordination without speech. Coordination as instinct. The reluctant enforcer puts his back to the nearest wall weapon trained on rapidly increasing threats. The asset cannot parse the scene. Parsing is for those who will live long enough to interpret. The sword turns limbs into lifeless mass. Slicing through the red atmosphere of the emergency litzerial. The blade does not cut like metal. It cuts like a decision. Behind the sword's owner, the neon contract moves like a bullet. Countering blows. Dodging others. Landing intermittent strikes with surgical cruelty. Impact delivered where systems will fail, not where flesh will bruise. Another rupture. More containment tanks burst in violent succession. Luminescent viscous liquid floods the floor again. The room becomes a pool of living chemistry. 2 more hostile units emerge. Optics glow red. Targets lock. Threat levels recalibrate. Crude reinforced limbs drive forward in staggered mechanical efficiency. Power over precision. Force over grace. 1 unit assigns the human asset as target. The reluctant enforcer fires. First shot impacts reinforced chest plating. Minimal slowdown. Second volley follows. 2 more rounds, center mass. Impact is acknowledged as data, not injury. The unit lunges. Contact is immediate. Force drives the reluctant enforcer into the wall. Air evacuates from lungs. The body becomes a pinned object. The asset struggles to raise the weapon. Then pain arrives. A sharp tearing sensation in the right upper quadrant. A breach event. Warm wet volume. Too much blood. The unit retracts a blade. Blade presence confirmed. It strikes again. Bicep. Efficiency calculation visible in the sequence. Disable the arm. Reduce resistance. Continue. The reluctant enforcer's vision blurs. Consciousness begins to slip. Then the neon contract appears. A brutal snapping kick disrupts the unit's stance. An elbow drives into optic casing. A targeted strike to sensory input. Blind the weapon. Reduce the threat. A second later, the luminous analyst arrives beside them. Sword humming. Carving air with merciless efficiency. The blade defines boundaries the room was not built to accommodate. The hostile unit staggers. Not from pain. From system failure. From interrupted directives. The reluctant enforcer slumps. Breath ragged. Weapon stability collapses. Limbs grow heavy. Sluggish. The world becomes distant. The two high-value units continue moving. The fight is not over. More are coming. The room remains a mouth releasing teeth. The engagement continues methodically. Scales tip in their favor as the reluctant enforcer loses consciousness. A brief moment occurs during the exchange. A hostile unit shifts focus toward the luminous analyst. Strike is intercepted by the neon contract. Redirection occurs before the luminous analyst needs to react. The moment is small. The moment is recorded. It does not go unnoticed. Eventually, the final hostile unit falls. Silence does not return. Only the absence of immediate motion. The luminous analyst turns. The neon contract is gone. And with her, the reluctant enforcer. A sharp exhale. Irritation flashes through composed expression. Fingers tighten around the sword hilt. Then release is forced. The blade dissipates back into the concealed compartment. The body seals the weapon away as if it never existed. The luminous analyst surveys the carnage. Fallen units. Pools of luminescent fluid mixing with spilled blood. A laboratory floor turned into a ledger. The neon contract fought beside her. Defended her. And still escaped. Escape is an insult when witnessed. Jaw tightens. This is not over. Elsewhere, the neon contract executes abort protocol. Search for answers terminated temporarily. Escape is swift. Calculated. Frustrating. With the luminous analyst closing in. With hostile units swarming. With a human asset bleeding out. The neon contract selects an unexpected variable. The human asset is dragged along. The asset could have been left. Deadweight. Corporate debris. But the neon contract moves before rationalizing away responsibility. A look was exchanged. Dazed. Failing. A body breaking. It triggers action. Not mercy. Not softness. A decision to keep a pawn intact. Utility assessment follows. If he survives, he may be useful. If he dies, at least he was not left to be cleaned up like company waste. This is not compassion. This is control over consequences. Injury severity, high. And something about it is untrusted. Possible toxin. Unfamiliar signature. Wrongness beyond wound mechanics. Additionally, he was inside. He may have seen. He may have heard. He is now a witness vector. Witness vectors are dangerous, but also valuable. The neon contract is not above flipping the board. Sometimes the only way to see what is hidden is to spill it. New objective forms. Find assistance. Select someone who will not ask too many questions. Select someone who will not leave a trail. Select someone who will not generate a searchable narrative for the luminous analyst, Somnius Industries, or Mara Cybernetics. Trail minimization becomes priority. Containment of attention. Containment of records. Containment of memory. Notice, the city will log the absence as well as the blood. Notice, pursuit will be polite. Notice, correction will be framed as safety. Thank you for cooperating.